Going live. And aha, we're live. I hope. Fingers crossed. There's the screen going a little bit brighter there. It's just gone 10 o'clock, so I'll say hello, everybody out there in YouTube land. Thanks very much for joining me. I'm Doc Sloan. Welcome to my science fiction station, also known as the Doghouse. And tonight it's the penultimate chapter of Children of Dune, chapter 63. Wow, we're getting there. One more to go, folks. Can't wait. It's going to be a good one next week. A little bit longer than this. This isn't too big a chapter, but it's a very interesting one. And if you excuse me a wee moment, I'm just trying to find my paperweights. There we go for our books. So if anybody's out there, say hello. As I said, this is our penultimate chapter tonight, chapter 23, which is basically Ghanima preparing Farad'n for his, I suppose, for his life in the court of Leto II, probably for his meeting of Leto, which will be the, I suppose, the main subject, the main action and narrative within the next chapter, I suppose, where we get to get some really good speeches from Leto II. But this is chapter 63, 6 pages. Shouldn't take us too long to run through. I'm just checking if I got everything with me, and I'm thinking I don't, and I might have to nip out very quickly for something. Paperweight on book, that's me. Tissue paper. Yeah, bear with me a second, folks. I'm just going to have to quickly run out and grab something. It'll be two ticks. There we go. Sorry about that, folks. Be prepared. Ooh, always a bit chaotic here. There we go. Apologies. Yes, indeed. There we are. That goes there. That goes there. That goes there. And that goes there. Excellent. Sorry about that, folks. We're organised now. It's always a bit chaotic here. Bojack Harkness is saying, hey all. And there's Carlos Crescelius and gentlemen. Cynthia, hi Doc. Hi Bojack. Hi Carlos. Hello, everybody. Hi, Bojack. Hi, Carlos. Hi, Cynthia. Thanks very much for joining us. Oh, sorry, I'm a bit out of breath there. Let me just turn that a wee bit. There we go. Goodness, what a week. Interesting enough, we're having a bit of a week here. The weather's appalling here. Usually when we get a wee bit of a problem with reception, I've ultimately figured out that it is actually to do with weather here and some atmospherics and stuff. So hopefully things won't be too bad tonight. But we've been sort of so much rain that the street in the garden there is flooding tonight. Excuse me. So yeah, it's just an absolutely miserable day here. Carlos is saying hi, Cynthia. Yes, indeed. Let me just put that there. There we go. Yeah, we've had a kind of a funny week here just before we get started. Oddly enough, we're starting to put some things in motion here, and it looks like we're going to move house, which is great, I think. But I'll not say too much. I don't want to keep my hopes up or anything like that. But at the minute, I'm hoping to be able to possibly bring you Doc Sloan's science fiction station from a station at some point, possibly. So I'll keep you tuned. Keep you abreast of that to see what happens, but we're basically looking to move house, get away from it all a wee bit, get into the country. Right, let's see. Chapter 63 is set about a week later during the morning, and our location is the keep. And the first thing that we have in our epigraph, number 63, is the assumption that a whole system can be made to work better through an assault on its conscious elements betrays a dangerous ignorance. This has often been the ignorant approach of those who call themselves scientists and technologists. And this is from the Butlerian Jihad by Hark al-Ada. Now, I think that's quite funny for a number of reasons. Let me see. Those assumptions that a whole system can be made to work better through an assault on its conscious elements. I'm not sure what we mean by an assault there, but by an examination of those elements. For example, yeah, if you're building a system, there's different, how would we put it? There's different ways of going about it, but one such methodology might be, for example, evolutionary prototyping, which would be very much a way that you can improve the system. By consciously looking at its elements, if you like, if that's what that means. But betrays a dangerous ignorance. What is this ignorance? What is it we don't know? This has often been the ignorant approach of those who call themselves scientists and technologists. Now, I think personally, Frank Herbert, as much as this is a quote from the Butlerian Jihad, so it should represent to us an attitude that is against science and technology. But I have to say, and I think we've got enough evidence for it, that Frank Herbert isn't a fan of relying on science and technology to solve your problems, if you see what I mean. And he's talked about science fiction writing, that he doesn't like those that rely on what we would call technological toy syndrome. And he's sort of really talking about the science fiction writers like Heinlein, I suppose, like Asimov and like Clarke. Who are all either scientists or engineers, that kind of thing. The irony here, if you like, is very funny. I've written because in the last chapter, Frank doesn't know what a pickup is, so so himself being a little bit ignorant. But yeah, it's a very interesting little quote in relation to the Butlerian Jihad, and it's interestingly enough, I suppose, looking at, I'm assuming something to do with the Butlerian Jihad in terms of systems. And those that call themselves scientists and technologists, scientists, people who know stuff, technologists, people who use and study arts and crafts, if you if you want. But there we go. That's our introductory epigraph here on the Butlerian Jihad by Hark al-Ada. So it's interesting to get a little bit of insight into the Butlerian Jihad at this point in the story. Carlos is saying moving's a pain, but you find so much stuff you didn't even realize you'd lost. Bojack's saying I lose so much stuff you really wish you hadn't. Yeah. I think we're looking forward to it, to be honest with you. We moved in here for a reason. It was to do with looking after I moved in to look after my dad. My wife followed me after he'd passed away. But we hadn't planned to live here. And I think personally for myself, I've got too many ghosts here. If you like, So no, we're actually just talking about it's time for something different. We kind of live on the edge of the town. Just right next to the countryside. We're looking at possibly buying an old train station right out in the countryside here in Northern Ireland, and going and living in it. And sort of no neighbours, this kind of thing, but still not too far out or anything, But we're just looking for a bit of peace and quiet, to be honest with you. But I'll be completely honest with you guys. I'd be a lot more prolific on here if I could work here in the house during the day. I could, as much as I work with my students, but prior to certain times during the day, this place has been like a permanent building site for about 3-4 years, and there's just always noise and vibration. So me trying to do sound recording and stuff, it's pretty awkward. So oddly enough, moving away from the town here, and possibly moving into a train station next to a train track to get away from the noise. But at least, I don't know. We kind of like the idea of it, so hopefully we're going to go check it out soon. And hopefully it won't be too much of a pain. But yeah, I've done it that many times, Carlos. By the time I was 30 years of age, I'd moved house 30 times, which was obscene. And as I've gone through life, I also realized that hardly anybody ever has done that, But yes, indeed, that was my old little tick. By the time I was 30, I had lived in 30 different houses. There's Julie Thompson saying, hi, Doc, and hi, all. Hi, Julian. We're just getting started. And yes, indeed, that this chapter, I suppose we just had our wee quick run through the epigraph, and we were having a wee bit of a giggle about how Frank didn't know that we got that sort of bit of a howler with pickups in the previous chapter. And here we have this little comment from the Butlerian Jihad on the ignorant approach of those who call themselves scientists and technologists, systems. So we're just about to get going with the chapter. This is Ghanima. So here we go, folks. He runs at night, cousin, Ghanima said. He runs. Have you seen him run? No, Farad'n said. He waited for Ghanima outside the small audience hall of the keep, where Leto had called them to attend. Tyakanik stood at one side, uncomfortable with the Lady Jessica, who appeared withdrawn, as though her mind lived in another place. It was hardly an hour past the morning. Sorry, I'll read that again. It was hardly an hour past the morning meal, but already many things had been set moving. A summons to the guild, messages to Chom, and the Landsrat. So 3 players there, if you like, in our Dune universe. The guild, Chom, and Landsrat, all getting messages from their new emperor. Farad'n found it difficult to understand these Atreides. The Lady Jessica had warned him, but still the reality of them puzzled him. They still talked of betrothal, although most political reasons for it seemed to have dissolved. Leto would assume the throne. There appeared little doubt of that. His odd living skin would have to be removed, of course, but in time. And that seems to sort of be, Farad'n's thought process there. Thinking this odd living skin has to be taken off. And we get Ghanima continuing here. He runs to tire himself, Ghanima said. He's Kralazek embodied. No wind ever ran as he runs. He's a blur atop the dunes. I've seen him. He runs, and when he has exhausted himself at last, he returns and rests his head in my lap. Ask our mother within to find a way for me to die, he pleads. Now, I just put a little comment at the bottom that I've just written. I can think of loads of ways to kill Leto Atreides. From dropping him into a volcano to displacing him into the heart of a sun to just chucking him into a vacuum. I think there's all sorts of things that you could do to let him die. If you see what I mean, it's a question of your imagination, really, isn't it? Just to have a wee bit of fun with that statement. And I probably shouldn't. Sorry, because it's kind of, we should be pitying him here again. This is I suppose our 10-year-old protagonist turned monster, slowly starting to turn into something that's not human, who seems to be taking on a great burden. Farad'n stared at her. In the week since the riot in the plaza, the keep had moved to strange rhythms, mysterious comings and goings. Stories of bitter fighting beyond the shield wall came to him through Tykanik, whose military advice had been asked. So bitter fighting beyond the shield wall, again, the main thing that's been running within, I suppose, Children of Dune is we've had a bit of a Fremen civil war going, haven't we? And this is possibly also attacks on pilgrims from the bit of rabble rousing that we saw in the previous chapter. But there's fighting going on beyond the shield wall, bitter fighting. And Farad'n's Sardaukar officer is being asked for his advice on it. I don't understand you, Farad'n said. Find a way for him to die. And as I said, I can think of loads, but he asked me to prepare you, Ghanima said. Not for the first time, she was struck by the curious innocence of this Corino prince. Was that Jessica's doing? Or something born in him? For what? That's Farad'n, by the way. For what? He's no longer human, Ghanima said. Yesterday you asked when he was going to remove the living skin. Never. It's part of him now, and he's part of it. Leto estimates he has perhaps 4,000 years before metamorphosis destroys him. Hmm. So we're going to get some figures bandied about in this chapter by Ghanima. And we'll get this again, I suppose, but the estimate for Leto's lifespan with the worm skin is 4,000 years. And I don't think he'll get it, actually, isn't it? If I can remember rightly, I think it's about is it 3,500 perhaps, something like that. But good enough. It's an estimate, I suppose, isn't it? Yeah, it's an estimate. So a long time to have somebody on the throne, eh? Farad'n tried to swallow in a dry throat. You see why he runs? Ghanima asked. But if he'll live so long and be so, and he's cut off here, because the memory of being human is so rich in him. Think of all those lives, cousin. No, you can't imagine what that is because you've no experience of it. But I know. I can imagine his pain. He gives more than anyone ever gave before. Our father walked into the desert trying to escape it. Alia became abomination in fear of it. Our grandmother has only the blurred infancy of this condition, yet must use every Bene Gesserit wile to live with it, which is what Reverend Mother training amounts to, anyway. But Leto, he's all alone, never to be duplicated. Now, we've got some interesting statements there, I suppose. We get Ganima's estimate of, I suppose, the failure of the other members of her family. Paul Atreides running away from it into the desert, trying to escape this pain, this inhumanity, if you like. The price of what it would actually be is to give up your humanity. Leto can do it. Paul could not. Alia became abomination out of fear of this thing. And we're then told that grandmother has only the blurred infancy of this condition, yet must use every Bene Gesserit wile to live with it, which is what Reverend Mother training amounts to anyway. So that's basically, we're being told there that the training that the Bene Gesserit get to become a Reverend Mother is to allow them to deal with all the lives of other memory and not become abomination, if you like. That a normal Bene Gesserit, or an exceptional Bene Gesserit, sorry, if we think who we're talking about here, Jessica, has to use every trick they've got just to live with this. That's quite interesting. But it also, we're interesting in a number of ways. I suppose we're told it's the blurred infancy of this condition. It's not quite the same thing, is it? But it's still interesting that the Bene Gesserit training has developed with a pretty much a standard way, a way that can be taught and passed on to deal with the multitude. He's all alone, never to be duplicated. I wrote next to that, aren't we all? But yes, indeed, Leto II is truly unique. Farad'n felt stunned by her words. Emperor for 4,000 years? Jessica knows, Ghanima said, looking across at her grandmother. He told her last night. He called himself the first truly long-range planner in human history. What? Sorry, I'll read that again. What does he plan? The golden path. He'll explain it to you later. And again, hopefully the final chapter. We get Farad'n, and he has a role for me in this plan. As my mate, Ghanima said, he's taking over the sisters' breeding. Sorry, I'll read that again. He's taking over the sisterhood's breeding program. I'm sure my grandmother told you about the Bene Gesserit dream for a male reverend with extraordinary powers. And again, he cuts off. You mean we're just to be? Not just. She took his arm, squeezed it with a warm familiarity. He'll have many very responsible tasks for both of us, when we're not producing children, that is. Well, you're a little young yet, Farad'n said, disengaging his arm. Don't ever make that mistake again, she said. There was ice in her tone. And we get a change of subject there here, I suppose. But oddly enough, I think no, Farad'n's quite Farad'n's quite right here to pull away a bit here, and he's not made a mistake at all in terms of the girl is 10 physically, and hence you are a little young yet. And it's interesting, I suppose, that Ghanima's frosty response doesn't provide an acknowledgement with yes, I understand that physically I'm 10. If she's that old and has so much wisdom and so many lives within her, um, she seems a little bit easily provoked over her age. But yeah, probably quite uncomfortable for adding this. Dear oh dear. Now let's have a wee look. I'm gonna have a ooch. So he's taking over the sisters breeding program. I'm sure my grandmother told you about the Bene Gesserit dream for a male reverend with extraordinary powers, the exquisite samurai. And you kind of often wonder, is if Paul wasn't meant to be quite it, is what Leto has become? Is that actually what they were aiming for? I don't think it would be, but it's interesting. So yeah, I suppose we're getting a little bit of a sympathy play here. Jessica knows the golden path. What's my role in this? Basically, we're going to be breeding partners for his breeding because he's taking over the Bene Gesserit breeding program. At this point, we get Jessica came up to them with Tykenik. And we have Jessica speak here. Tyke tells me the fighting has spread off planet. Jessica said, the central temple on Biarec is under siege. Farad'n thought her oddly calm in this statement. He'd reviewed the reports with Tykenik during the night. A wildfire of rebellion was spreading through the Empire. It would be put down, of course, but Leto would have a sorry empire to restore. And I suppose that's Farad'n's assessment there. What have we got? We have a central temple on Biarec under siege. This is a word that doesn't exist. So we went investigating as usual to see what can we get with it. And what we decided to do was, as usual, well, we'll do a few things with the word that Frank uses. We're assuming that Biarec is a planet. The fighting is spread off planet. The central temple on Biarec is under siege. Oh, ladies! Sorry about that, folks. Girls are out in the garden. If you split it into two, I suppose you can get something that does actually make sense in terms of names and things like that. Is that Baya is Baya? If we split it right down the middle, Baya and Rek. Baya is the Greek personification of violence. Lovely Baya. In her silence, she's the she's your silent but deadly, pretty much is Baya. So personification of violence, possibly there. And Rek, either with the little upside down arrow over the E or the what's that called? Is that a grav? Is it? Sorry. It's not. Wonder what you call that. I must look that up. Here, I'll show it to you. I'm having a brain fart. Let's see. Over here. There we go. If you can see the rack there. There we go. So rack, and with that little accent and without, if someone can jog my memory, that would be great. I should just go look it up. Is a Czech word for a Greek person, and is also an archaic Czechoslovakian word for hero. So if you like the two words, if you want, or either the second part of the word, you could consider either a Greek person or a hero, and the first part of it would be a representation of violence. So you could read the word as, in a sense, violence of the Greeks, or violence of a Greek person, if you like, or violence of heroes. Which does kind of make sense in some kind of ways, especially with what we've been reading. But otherwise, I've written, so it could be the violence of the Greeks or the violence of heroes. is what Biorek could mean. If we simply assume it's a compound word and it's got two parts that have been shoved together right in the middle. That's what I found. Anyway, and if anybody's got anything else, I'm all ears basically. So we had Jessica arrive here with Tyakonic a second ago, and then we get we have Farad'n's assessment here. So we find out that there's a rebellion all over, wildfire rebellion all over the place, and it possibly, by the looks of it, that with what's going on in Biorek, it's the central temple. It's possibly the priesthood of Muad'Dib, alias priesthood, etc., that are getting attacked by the looks of it. If the targets are temples. This is Ghanima. Here's Stilgar now, Ghanima said. They've been waiting for him. And once more she took Farad'n's arm. Stilgar, the old Fremen had entered by the far door, escorted by two former Death Commando companions from the desert days. All were dressed in formal black robes with white piping and yellow headbands for mourning. They approached with steady strides, but Stilgar kept his attention on Jessica. He stopped in front of her, nodded warily. You still worry about the death of Duncan Idaho, Jessica said. She didn't like this caution in her old friend. Reverend Mother, he said. And we get Jessica's thoughts here. So it's going to be that way, Jessica thought. All formal and according to the Fremen code, with blood difficult to expunge. She said, by our view, you but played a part with Duncan. Sorry, I'll say that again. By our view, you but played a part which Duncan assigned you. Not the first time a man has given his life for the Atreides. Why do they do it still? You've been ready for it more than once. Why? Is it that you know how much the Atreides give in return? I wrote wow underneath that speech. And it's supposed to placate Stilgar to alleviate his worries, I suppose. It's basically letting him know that Duncan played him, if you like, that he was manipulated, and that Duncan gave his life. It's not the first time someone's given his life for the Atreides. Why do they do it still? And I suppose she's probably thinking of Paul here as well, and possibly even Alia. Who, again, just I wanted to point out, by the way, folks, with Jessica, how would we put this? We get inversions of things and supernatural. Sorry, not supernatural. Yeah, supernatural. Some mythological overlays, etc. And one of them, the obvious one for Jessica, is if we assume that Paul and Alia are Leto, are Artemis and Apollo. And of course, the inversion with the names. Then Jessica is very much Leto, the mother of these divine twins. And Leto is famous for sending out her own children to slaughter the children of Niobe, who is, as they say, all tears, if you like. And it's an interesting. I was just thinking about the inversion of it, because also Jessica is very much, in some ways, Yocasta here, with Paul being Oedipus, yeah, how would I put it? Just having lost her own children, all of her children are dead now, and she's kind of turning to Farad'n in a sense. But it got me thinking that the inversion of it is that she who should be Leto, whose children's arrows slaughter Niobe's children, it's her who's left weeping for all of her children dead. It just kind of made me think about that, because Niobe is very much a part of that myth. Yeah, what a thing to say. Why do they do it still? You've been ready for it more than once. In other words, you've nearly given your life for us on more than one occasion. Why? Is it that you know how much the Atreides give in return? It's oh the it's I wrote wow whenever I first kind of was doing my notes on it there at the bottom of the page. You can see, and then over we go, I suppose. But I wrote holy propaganda, Batman. Well, holy propaganda, Jessica. What a speech, and how much the Atreides can give. And then I actually cheekily wrote above this that none have given more than her, in that sense that both of her children are gone now, and her husband. Um, but yeah, holy propaganda, Jessica. I'm just having a bit of fun with it, and we're going to see that a lot of this is, in fact, Farad'n's here. We've got Stilgar here. We've got Tychonic, but those ladies of the Atreides here are on. We'll find out on the full roll with the propaganda machine. The thing that the Atreides do so well, and I suppose the manipulation here, but it's very interesting. And we're about to get to see it a bit more of this theatre, if you like. I'm happy you seek no excuse for revenge, he said, but there are matters I must discuss with your grandson. These matters may separate us from you forever. This is Ghanima. You mean Tabar will not pay him homage? Ghanima asked. I mean, I reserve my judgment. He looked coldly at Ghanima. I don't like what my Fremen have become, he growled. We will go back to the old ways, without you if necessary. For a time, perhaps, Ghanima said, but the desert is dying still. What will you do when there are no more worms, no more desert? I don't believe it. Sorry, that sounded very Victor Meldrew there, didn't it? I don't believe it. Paul, apologies. I don't believe it. Within 100 years, Ghanima said, there'll be fewer than 50 worms, and those will be sick ones kept in a carefully managed reservation. Their spice will be for the Spacing Guild only, and the price? I've seen Leto's figures. He's been all over the planet. He knows. Is this another trick to keep the Fremen as your vassals? When were you ever my vassal? Stilgar scowled. No matter what he said or did, these twins always made it his fault. I love that. I think it's very funny. Um, and it is a very funny thing to sort of say back to him. And it's thrown right back in his face. Um, but at the same time, he's being completely manipulated here, I think. We're getting a little bit more info on, the spice is going to be for the Spacing Guild, one of the three groups that messages have been sent to at the start of this chapter. It was the Guild, Chom, and the Landsrad, wasn't it? I believe. Yes, indeed. The Guild, Chom, and Landsrad. So the spice will be for the Spacing Guild only, and the price, it's going to get astronomical, isn't it? It's going to get rare. And within 100 years, we're going the figures that Ghanima keeps giving us in this chapter. I suppose we get the 4,000 years for until the Wormskin kills Leto. We get the 100 years. We'll be having less than 50 worms. Is this another trick to keep the Fremen as your vassals? When were you ever my vassal? Stilgar scowled. No matter what he said or did, these twins always made it his fault. I like that. Last night he told me about this golden path, Stilgar blurted. I don't like it. That's odd, Ghanima said, glancing at her grandmother. Most of the Empire will welcome it. Here we go. Destruction of us all, Stilgar muttered. Most of the Empire will welcome it. Says who? Is that a prediction? Is this theatre? Is that this is propaganda? Is what I've written. And again, destruction of us all, Stilgar. And I've written down underneath this how the Atreides use Stilgar. It must be interesting in terms of if we think about how Stilgar kind of views the Atreides throughout the Dune series. And was it his strange sorcerer friends, if you like, are both dead now. And it's very much whatever the status quo was. It's definitely altered, and I think he's possibly finding it difficult to to trust this lot as well. Um, but yeah, destruction of us all. But everyone longs for the golden age, Ghanima said. Isn't that so, grandmother? Everyone, Jessica agreed. Absolute theatre and propaganda. Um, this is it's a prepared. We'll know that for sure. I think it shortly, but it's a prepared set, isn't it? It's all an act, and again, it's possibly not just for Stilgar, for Farad'n, for Tyachonic, for anybody who might be listening. They long for the pharaonic empire which Leto will give them, Ghanima said. They long for a rich peace with abundant harvests, plentiful trade, a levelling of all except the golden ruler. It'll be the death of the Fremen, Stilgar protested. How can you say that? Will we not need soldiers and brave men to remove the occasional dissatisfaction? Why, still, you and Tyke's brave companions will be hard pressed to do the job. Stilgar looked at the Sardaukar officer, and a strange light of understanding passed between them. And Leto will control the spice, Jessica reminded them. He'll control it absolutely, Ghanima said. Now, just backing up a wee bit, I suppose, with all of that theatre and propaganda. Um, Stilgar here, if you want to talk, if you want to put it into those terms, is being prophetic, isn't he? In a sense, if we ultimately know it'll be the death of the Fremen, I've written next that true. Ultimately, what we're told here with this outrageous propaganda, everyone longs for the golden age, and Jessica says everyone. Jessica agreed. Um, then a couple of paragraphs later, we need will we not need soldiers and brave men to remove the occasional dissatisfaction? So not everyone now. A leveling of all, but basically they need fighting men to deal with anybody who's a malcontent with the new empire, this kind of thing. And Stilgar and Tyke's brave companions will be hard pressed to do the job. So this is a merger, in that sense, of the Fremen and the Sardaukar, who are going to do, Leto's work for him, Leto's dirty work for him. Goodness, there's tons of. Hang on, I better catch up with comments there, folks. So they say Ghanima seems drawn to the innocence of Farad'n. Years hence, her twin Leto will be drawn to similar characteristics in Hui Nori. I got that pronunciation there, nailed that. Carlos is saying, Atreides had first-class propaganda machine. Nobody does it better than the Atreides, Carlos. That's it. Yeah, I suppose there is there's a couple of questions in this chapter about Jessica and Farad'n, I think, and what's going on there. And has he been a little too well trained? This kind of thing. Has he been imprinted, possibly by Jessica? Is it possible that it's happened the other way around? Maybe. I don't know. The relationship seemed to be a bit beyond the teacher pupil thing. I'm not too sure about it. How can you say that? The death of the Fremen is what Stilgar sees it as being. Stilgar looked at the Sardaukar officer, and a strange light of understanding passed between them. And Leto will control the spice, Jessica reminded them. He'll control it absolutely, Ghanima said. So I had more comments to read there. Julian saying the Atreides invent their own currency in which they give. No one has given their humanity in this way because no one has ever invented the circumstances that demands their giving. The generation who will welcome Leto's peace will die off before realizing how dull it is. Yeah, and again, it's 4,000 years of Leto. What a joy! How boring that must be for the universe. Another year of the worm guy. In a sense, it's going to be that is the paradox of it, isn't it? that it is going to be. You imagine it should be stagnant. Maybe it is this stagnancy that's going to put people down. The other, I haven't got a sense, even as much as we got that Leto is Kralazek embodied within this. It's quite possible that might be that he is Kralazek as well. I'm starting to think that way. The generation who will welcome Leto's peace will die before realizing how dull it is. Their children will start getting a bit twitchy. Yeah. Mm. And I really do. By the way, I really like the way that, as much as we have the twins working together, we're not going to see that once we leave this book. But I really like the way that Ghanima is preparing Farad'n here in this chapter, and using Jessica as they're teaming up on this guy as well. It's not just him; it's Stilgar, it's Tyke, the whole lot. And again, it's a performance kind of one. I get the sense that even some of this would be recorded and broadcast or something like that. Especially because some of the language is so everyone, it's so everyone loves with the golden age. Yes, everyone. It's almost kind of like beatific brainwash type language, if you see what I mean. Um, mm, Farad'n, listening with the new awareness which Jessica had taught him, heard a set piece, a prepared performance between Ghanima and her grandmother. There we go. Peace will endure and endure and endure, Ghanima said. Memory of war will all but vanish. Leto will lead humankind through that garden for at least 4,000 years. Tyke glanced questioningly at Farad'n, cleared his throat. Yes, Tyke, I'd speak privately with you, my prince. Pardon me. So yeah, sorry. Just as always, when we get these little things within Jim, before we go any further, we have the endure and endure and endure. That's very much part of those repetition of motifs within everything. The plan within plan within plan, the trap within a trap within a trap. And here we have peace will endure and endure and endure. Memory of war will all but vanish, so it won't completely. Leto will lead humankind through that garden for at least 4,000 years. Tyke glanced question at Farad'n, cleared his throat. Yes, Tyke, I'd speak privately with you, my prince. Farad'n smiled, knowing the question in Tyke's military mind, knowing that at least two others present also recognized this question. That's Ghanima and Jessica. Those with Bene Gesserit training, in other words, I think. I'll not sell the Sardaukar, Farad'n said. No need, Ghanima said. Do you listen to this child? Tyke demanded. He was outraged. The old naib there understood the problems being raised by all this plotting, but nobody else knew a damn thing about the situation. I wrote next to that, uh-oh. Yeah, I find, in fact, I'll come back to this actually. If you don't, excuse me 1 wee second, folks, I'm going to to the loo very quickly, but I have a bit of a problem with this, this bit here. Bear with me. I'll be right back. Excuse me. Want me to do. There we go. Sorry about that, folks. Yeah, just this bit where Tychonik says, "Do you listen to this child?" Tychonik demanded. He was outraged. This little bit here, and I've kind of scribbled "uh-oh" next to it. And the bit that I was kind of wondering was, I didn't think it was, and maybe it's just that the character is angry, but Tychonik was present in the previous chapter, wasn't he? As far as I recall. Wasn't he with Farad'n and Jessica when Leto turns up and does his thing with Ghanima? Let me see, sorry. Oh, I've gone back too far. Bear with me a second. Ah, there we go. This was from previous week. I'm pretty sure he was there. Two bodyguards and the Lady Jessica. I'm not too sure, actually, to be honest with you, but I had assumed that if one of those bodyguards would have been Tychonik. But I might be wrong. But I suppose the bit that I thought that didn't really make sense is that I would imagine him, if anybody had any sense about what had happened 1 week earlier with Leto chucking around gigantic doors and all of this kind of stuff, I wouldn't slabber at one of these children like this, if you see what I mean. And he should have knowledge of how dangerous these children are. And I suppose maybe it's just that, and that they do go around telling people that they're not children, I suppose. So maybe it was just that I thought maybe it didn't quite fit. Do you listen to this child? Tychonik demanded. He was outraged. The old Naib there understood the problems being raised by all this plotting, but nobody else knew a damn thing about the situation. So that's Stilgar. He's feeling a kind of sense of, gets it, if you see what I mean. Ghanima smiled grimly, said, "Tell him, Farad'n." Farad'n sighed. It was easy to forget the strangeness of this child, who was not a child. He could imagine a lifetime married to her, the hidden reservations on every intimacy. It was not a totally pleasant prospect, but he was beginning to recognize its inevitability. Absolute control of dwindling spice supplies. Nothing would move in the universe without the spice. Later, Tig, Farad'n said. But, and he's cut off here. Later, I said. For the first time, he used voice on Tychonik. Saw the man blink with surprise and remain silent. A tight smile touched Jessica's mouth. And I figured that's pride, isn't it? That's a little bit of pride there. Pride in her teaching, perhaps. Again, just with Jessica in this one, I suppose you're kind of wondering about how much pain she's in. What's her emotional situation here? But again, as always, a very strong character. Seems to be keeping things together pretty well. This is Stilgar. He talks of peace and death in the same breath, Stilgar muttered. Golden Age? Ghanima said. He'll lead humans through the cult of death into the free air of exuberant life. He speaks of death because that's necessary still. It's a tension by which the living know they're alive. When his empire falls, oh yes, it'll fall. You think this is Kralazek now, but Kralazek is yet to come. And when it comes, humans will have renewed their memory of what it's like to be alive. The memory will persist as long as there's a single human living. We'll go through the crucible once more still, and we'll come out of it. We'll always arise from our own ashes, always. A little reference to the phoenix, I suppose, there. An absolute to end off this statement. He lead through the humans through the cult of death into the free air of exuberant life. He speaks of death because that's necessary. It's a tension by which the living know they're alive. Yeah, he's going to have lots of people know that they're really alive by flinging death at them. I think when his empire falls, and yes, it'll fall, you think this is Kralazak now, but Kralazak is yet to come. So as much as I was saying, Kralazak is that possibly Leto the Second? I don't think it is. It's Frank's great MacGuffin, isn't it? But yes, he's going to put mankind through a crucible. That is essentially part of the golden path, isn't it? And when those that survive will be strong enough to deal with what's on the other side, what's Kralazak. That's the idea. Let's see. Oh, not much further to go. Let's check your comments, folks. Generation who will welcome Leto's peace will die off before realizing how dull it is. Their children's children will start getting a bit twitchy. Cynthia said, do you think Leto's enforced peace is an example of the assault of the conscious elements we heard in the epigraph? Removing the memory of war may have intended results as the Butlerian Jihad did. Assault of the conscious elements. And then, therefore, that whole system, therefore, Cynthia, in that sense, would be mankind, wouldn't it? Is that, if you see what I mean? Is that right? Removing the assault of the conscious elements. So that's the assumption that a whole system can be made to work better through an assault on its conscious elements betrays a dangerous ignorance. But could we say, is that what Leto's doing here? Is that the gist of what I think you're saying there? If we think of mankind as a system, that's humanity. But it's, dangerous ignorance has often been the ignorant approach of those who call themselves scientists and technologists. So, in other words, from a Butlerian Jihad point of view, that's a bad thing if we invert that and then say that, consider maybe that Leto is like the elites going to, bring. We've had this discussion before about bringing the elite technologies to the center of power. That he will be a scientist and a technologist, as well as a god and many other things. Removing the memory of war may have unintended results, as the Butlerian Jihad did. Yeah, it's removing the sense of actual war and providing peace. I think the interesting thing, Cynthia, and I'm looking forward to getting to this, is that I've often compared the museum Fremen to the people of Northern Ireland, for example, and it is the memory of wars that haven't been fought for hundreds of years, if you see what I mean. That is the part and parcel of the culture that becomes part and parcel of who those people are, and they're not soldiers, they're not out fighting those wars, they're not part of that era of history. But it's so important to them, and we get that sense that the Fremen from this era, whenever we get to, or from the era of Muad'Dib, that it's the museum Fremen are going to be basically involved in a kind of mimesis, isn't it? It's an attempt to act and behave like their ancestors, as if they were those people, and revel in those people's successes and their battles and this kind of thing. And there's something about that that's going to degrade the Fremen badly. As I said, I think we've got a couple of statements in this chapter from Stilgar that are ultimately prophetic, I think, in relation to the Fremen. And Stilgar, again, is, what is it he says here? I'm not happy with what's become of my Fremen. I don't like what my Fremen have become. And his hope is that we'll go back to the old ways without you if necessary. Possibly not a good idea to go backwards, if you like, but maybe to find a better way of moving forward. Do I think Leto's enforced peace is an example of the assault on the conscious elements we heard in the epigraph? Yes, I do, actually. Sorry, just trying to run the question, something in my head. Removing the memory of war may have an unintended results, as the Butlerian Jahan did. Yeah, I think that's the kind of thing that as I said, one of the things that we get if we've been paying attention as we've been going along is we are seeing the Fremen changing quite badly. With the Fremen and Dune, wow, like I've had all of this stuff, and they're super impressive people. By the time we're into Dune Messiah, we're really talking about the Fremen of suburbia, aren't we? Here they're water fat and argumentative and falling out of all ways and trying stuff from new planets and cultures, and they're just not themselves anymore. We're going to get another stage to the Fremen in the next book, which is going to be, I suppose, even more of a step down. But as the thing that I call it within my own country is, you've heard me say this before, retarded atavism, which is to slow your development, if you see what I mean, by wishing to be like your grandfathers, in a funny sense. And that's kind of the term I come up for it. Rather than going forward and having a future, your culture is so firmly anchored to the past and to the belief that you're part of that past and that you reenact these battles. And it's not like, battle reenactment, marching and all of this kind of stuff. I always just say it was funny if you grabbed a Protestant or a Catholic from 400 years ago, who were fighting for the various kings and asked them, and told them what was happening, 400 years later, they'd probably throw their weapons down in disgust. Or the fact that there's no conclusion, that all this stuff, just more people are used to be still killing each other, But yes, indeed. And the other thing, I suppose, that the removal of all of the spice is going to take away ultimately what you could call, as much as it has many uses, it looks like it's the guild are going to be getting it. That's probably from one of its most practical uses, is to be able to work out, all these, to allow the guild navigators to work out all these calculations and so on, as they travel through space at incredible speed, so they don't fly into stars and stuff like that. That just reminded me, actually, I'm nearly finished Grey Lensman, and I've faced palm today. Just another element of what George Lucas might have nicked is our Grey Lensman just got his hand cut off by the bad guy at very near the end of the story, and I just thought, oh no, it's very Luke Skywalker, isn't it? Empire Strikes Back. And also thinking he's dressed in grey in that, isn't he, as well? Seeing me things, very much enjoying it. Sorry, I just popped into my head there. Julian Thompson said, in regards to war or conflict, Leto might be trying to reform human conflict. People in his period are aggressive. People post Leto are in less conflict. Groups absorb each other. Yeah, well again, everything evolves, and in these books. Yes, indeed, we're seeing the merging really here, possibly of to do a bit of final fight, maybe the last bit of fighting in Leto's, before his empire, his golden path, before the peace. He's got a universe to put in order here, and as Ghanima is pointing out, we need fighting men, and it looks like we're going to be putting the Fremen and their death commandos together with the Sardaukar. And if we remember way back, the Sardaukar had a pogrom against the Fremen, and the Fremen would kill Sardaukar on sight. And it looks like they're going to be working together in the service of their worm, So we are going to have a massive jump in the story very shortly, aren't we? Always the warning of Kralazek, the promise of a golden age. Everybody wants that, don't they? Yes, everybody. Where are we? Always, yes. We'll go through the crucible once more still, and we'll come out of it. We'll always arise from our own ashes, always. So ultimately, the goal, the morality check within all of the Dune series for us, I suppose we can have a good natter about this next week, in relation to how we look at Paul, how we look at Leto II, and how ultimately we're going to look at Leto II. Is it all, as much as we look at the morality of their actions, is it all for the greater good? Is the big question that you have to ask yourself. You could also ask that was it Paul's vision that actually took us to where we are now? Ultimately, because he was following a particular to make sure events happened. Is everything that's happening here that up to including his final speech, perhaps? You know, it's an interesting thing. It's ultimately, well, if Kralazeg is real, two things are going to really happen at the end of it, and we get the sense that one of them is either that mankind survives it, or the other thing is that mankind doesn't. And so we can always consider the action of the Atreides emperors, if you like, in terms of the greater good. The question is it real or not? Farad'n, hearing her words, understood now what she meant in telling him about Leto running. He'll not be human. Stilgar was not yet convinced. No more worms, he growled. Oh, the worms will come back, Ghanima assured him. All will be dead within 200 years. There's another one of her numbers. But they'll come back. How? Stilgar broke off. Farad'n felt his mind awash in revelation. He knew what Ghanima would say before she spoke. And this is the last part here from this speech, is the guild will barely make it through the lean years, and only then because of its stockpiles and ours, Ghanima said. But there'll be an abundance after Kralazek. The worms will return after my brother goes into the sand. That kind of made me think of the sort of, was it the 7 years of famines, 7 years of that kind of thing from the Bible, the lean years there. I must look that story up. Again, refresh my memory. The guild will barely make it, but that suggests that the guild will make it through the lean years, if you like, but only because of its stockpiles and ours. But there'll be an abundance after Kralazek. The worms will return after my brother goes into the sand. So there'll be abundance of spice after Kralazek. And that's going to come from when the worms return after my brother goes into the sand. Again, is it the suggestion that Leto is Kralazek? And I know as much as we had that he's represented as an embodiment of Kralazek, but the question is he the Typhoon struggle? Is he that crucible which is going to crush mankind, and whatever comes through the other side will be stronger and better to deal with whatever? It's interesting. Oh, sorry, Mrs. On. Julian said people in Ulster choose to engage in plastic tribal memory. The museum Fremen are cruelly forced to mimic their ancestors, not allowed to evolve, possibly due to one god's nostalgia. Again, I've got to get my memory engaged. Julian, it's been a while since I read it, but I can't remember that. I don't remember that they were forced to behave that way, to mimic their ancestors. Yeah. There's the process of mimesis, isn't it? I suppose. It is an interesting thing. Plastic tribal memory. Very good way of putting it, Julian. Atreides is saying Leto is about to shift the systems of human subsistence, and that always has powerful currents to change taboos, rituals, beliefs. Yes, indeed. We got a little bit of that even just with I suppose possibly from out with the dancers in the square in the previous chapter, didn't we? But there's all sorts of influences, I think, impacting on the Fremen, especially with their planet has become the heart of empire because of the spice. But we're going to see huge changes to, yes, indeed, to everything within the universe. If the spice is everything and everybody depends on the spice is going to become very rare and very, very expensive, and it's going to have knock-on consequences. It's probably going to affect space travel because the guild are going to have to tighten their belt. And as we already know, that space travel under in the empire of Muad'Dib and the Regency of Alia is extremely expensive. Oops. This think we got through a chapter without any mistakes. My goodness. I don't think we had, hope, fingers crossed, Lisa. I don't think we had any spelling mistakes or typos or errors or anything there. Wow, that hasn't happened in a while. Just occurred to me. Yeah, we get to see a little bit of a powerful Farad'n, who I suppose was prepped possibly to be able to defend against Ghanima. We see the nature of the breeding program here. And we're getting hints of what's ahead with the Golden Path. We've got a hint of how long Leto is going to live, and that the skin will never come off, that he's not human again. That's always being enforced. We get lots of smiles in this chapter. I noticed Farad'n smiled, and we've had Ghanima smiled, and smile touching Jessica's lips as well, Jessica's mouth. Peace will endure and endure and endure. I suppose that he who wants peace, let him prepare for war. We need a little bit of war first. We need fighting men. Again, you think the Atreides, oh goodness, I don't know, the propaganda machine in this chapter is thick for it, isn't it? It's really being laid on thick. And it's very, I don't know, has a bit of religious language to it in some places as well. And very much everybody, these absolutes, everybody's included. People who speak for everyone should never be trusted, as far as I'm concerned. You should never speak for everybody. I don't, never would. But yes, indeed, and we've got Stilgar in a bit of a tiz in this chapter, and he really, I don't believe it, destruction of us all. It'll be the death of my Fremen. Talks of peace and death in the same breath, golden age, no more worms. He's not happy, is he? And I suppose what's poor old Stilgar's reward for all this? We need you to go and fight people for us, sort it out. But there we go. Predictions of the future, foreshadowing. We're going to get a sense of what's coming ahead. And I suppose, interestingly enough, where are we? Mr. Trumpet Man. Where are we? No, we've had a few things that will appear in God Emperor of Dune. I was just wanting to check the publication date. It's 1981, isn't it? Children of Dune 76. So we're going to have 5 years in terms of writing between this one and God Emperor. Of course, we're going to probably jump straight there after a couple of weeks. But it's, yes, the museum frame and the idea of that happening to a culture, you see it with other cultures too, I suppose. But it's, to me, it's whenever I remember reading Dune, I got out of Dune just thinking that, and it's one of those things I tend to look at other cultures and reflect on my own a little bit as well. Leto is about to shift. This is Atreides, the systems of human subsistence that have always been, and that always have powerful currents to change taboos, rituals, beliefs. Yes. And Julian said, whether or not Kralazek is real, Leto's use of threat as a justification for his rule is certainly real. Absolutely. But he shows us how leaders do just that by example. One thing to say it, another to do it. Yeah. We've had all sorts of threats pulled out like that over the years. I mean, I suppose in the years since that Frank has written these books, some of his warnings that he wants us to pick up upon, I suppose some of them are pretty obvious. We've had a good example is within we had the WMDs, the 45-minute claim here, which brought Britain into the Iraq War, I think, and I think it was a load of hooey. But yeah, fear mongering in particular is a great thing, and I think there's lots fear mongering by political leaders and the desire to split people into two opposing groups, no matter how would I put it? How general the delineation, left and right, that kind of thing. I don't know. And it seems, I don't know, a bit odd to me these days, I think. I'm starting to think that adversarial democratic systems don't work. If you see what I mean, I think it'd be much better if they were cooperative democratic systems. But yes, indeed, how leaders do that. One thing to say, another to do it. Carlos is saying, I guess the Fremen have enough time to slowly recover from the spice addiction, which is otherwise fatal. Yeah, again, that's I suppose, the Fremen. Um, Again, because it's in their blood, and it'd be interesting how spice withdrawal would work with them, I suppose. But as you say, it's fatal. Chaya is saying, Shalom. Oh, sorry, I'm late. Hello, Chaya. Shalom. How you doing? Good to see you. Hope you're keeping well. Thank you very much for the wee New Year's thing. That was cool. That got me looking into calendars and stuff. Very much appreciated. I've never received anything like that before. That was quite cool. So thank you. Cynthia was saying, reserving space for the guild suggests that the Bene Gesserit won't have any. Is it Leto's desire to end the Reverend Mother's experience of inner lives, but the Bene Gesserit will continue despite Leto's designs? Well, he's certainly, at this point, again with my memory, Cynthia, he's going to take over their breeding program. The sense that I got is that everybody's got their stockpiles, if you like, that it depends on how they've been using them, how rich they are, how much they've been able to buy. Because prior to this, we had discussion about X amount of melange can buy you a planet. And if people are winging it around like that in terms of wealth, unrealizing that it's about to disappear, it could be something that with all the activity with spice and the economics of the universe prior to this, that a lot of it could have changed as people could find suddenly that they're without it. Not, as I said, but reserving space for the guild suggests the Bene Gesserit won't have any. I think they would have their stockpiles, but again, the specific this here, yeah, he'll only be meeting and doling it out to the guild by the sense of it, or mostly for them. I think anybody else who wants it, who's run out of their own, will have to come begging, won't they, for an allowance, I think. Is it Leto's desire to end the Reverend Mother's experience of inner lives, but the Bene Gesserit will continue despite? Well, first of all, that, but I don't think so. To that bit, is it his desire to end the Reverend Mother's experience of inner lives? No, I do think he wants to put them under the thumb, if you see what I mean, under the fist of his, as much as everyone else. I think he wants them to evolve out of this crucible too, and I think that runs in line with what we've learned about the Bene Gesserit, is that their problem with the breeding program is that they haven't realized that they would evolve too, that they saw themselves. Their mistake was that they saw themselves standing still, evolutionary speaking, I think. So I think it's partly to help force them into the evolution that everything must go through in these books, I think. Chaya Rucker saying, Happy New Year, you're welcome. Thanks for your lovely note. No worries at all, Chaya. Andrew Thompson, hi, Chaya. In regards to subsistence, Leto will centralize melange to his part. All human subsistence depends on one leader. Leto will teach people to hate dependence, one of Frank's personal things. Yes. Yeah, he's the warning. He's a warning, but oh, you careful. Here I come. Here's the thing. He's a tyrant. He's going to be the ultimate predator. And the interesting thing is we're going to jump when we leave. We've got one more chapter to go, folks, by the way. Well, I did I actually make it through the end of the chapter there? I did, I think, didn't I? I'll read that last wee bit again. We're going to have a 3,500 year jump in the action. We're not going to know what he's done, how many people he's killed, or his legions have killed, this kind of thing, but certainly it's going to be fun jumping in with this character. He's a fascinating character. All human substance. Yeah, and the centralizing of the melange to his part. This is, as you say, it's one of Frank's personal things. This is the hydraulic despotism. And we've had examples of that. We're now going to see that within the Dune series. The control of melange is everything. Here we're going to see it controlled to I suppose, a point where there's very little of it, and the control of this substance is going to be a rarity rather than easily available in the universe. And I suppose in terms of that, that could make all sorts of social, create all sorts of social problems. Those who can have access to a drug that prevents you from aging, um, as opposed to those who do not. And interestingly, we learned out that the Bene Gesserit can do that without a drug. That's something that they really don't want people to know, which never quite made sense. I thought Leto wants to take over the program chat. He is taking over the program. Yes, indeed. So it wasn't the end of the reading program there that Cynthia was saying. It was to end the Reverend Mother's / experience of inner lives, that kind of thing. But I think that I can't remember, but that develops with, isn't it, Simuflow and things like that. But no, I think everybody's getting punished here under the God Emperor. I think the Bene Gesserit included. I think everyone's under the thumb, and I can't remember exactly, but I think anybody who's not under his thumb ultimately won't do too well, if that makes sense. Leto will teach people to hate dependence, one of Frank's personal things. Yeah, it's not good, is it? You need to be able to stand on your own 2 feet. I thought Leto wants to take over the program. Chav said, yes, indeed, breeding program and control the spice. Absolutely. Yeah, we've just hit the last part there. I can't remember if I did read the last page there of notes. No more. Oh, I think I did. Yeah, Stilgar was not yet convinced. No more worms, he growled. Oh, the worms will come back, Ghanima asserted. All will be dead within 200 years, but they'll come back. Hi, Stilgar broke off. Farad'n felt his mind awash. In revelation, he knew what Ghanima would say before she spoke. Oh, I've got a note to read about that, by the way. Sorry, which I forgot. The guild will barely make it through the lean years, and only then because of its stockpiles and ours, Ghanima said. But there'll be an abundance after Kralzak. The worms will return after my brother goes into the sap. Now, simply put, the guild will barely make it because of their stockpiles and ours. That's the empires, that's Leto's and Ghanima's, if you like. I think the same will apply to most of the groups that come through it. They'll barely make it. And we've got all sorts of groups to consider. We have the houses of the Landsraad, great and small. We have all the ordinary people, I suppose. We have the Ixians. We have the Bene Tlilax to come. We have, I suppose we've got the Farad'n, the Sardaukar, all sorts to consider in this. Different groups. The Guild, Chom, etc. How will they make it through the reign of Leto? And we're going to do a kind of thing that we get with epics, I suppose, with but like the Trojan, the Iliad and stuff like that. Whenever we go to God Emperor, we're going to go to the last sort of period of his reign, basically. Which is going to be interesting. So the only thing I've thought is that, just quickly to mention there, a little note that I've made, is that Farad'n felt his mind awash in revelation. He knew what Ghanima would say before she spoke. And we had another thing there earlier with Tychonik. And I just thought that I just wrote C preempting Leto next chapter. And I thought that's part of Farad'n's talent. And we'll have Leto mention that to him. That I think that you've preempted me a few times now, causing this kind of thing, if I can remember correctly, because I haven't done the notes yet in the next chapter. And this is another example of him doing that. And ultimately, I suppose, yeah, we've got this chapter is Ghanima prepping Farad'n for what's to come, and our final chapter, which we'll have next week, next Thursday, is going to be what he's been prepared for, that meeting with Leto, which is going to give us a whole, his point of view. And as I said, it's going to be very interesting whenever we do jump to God Emperor, that we can maybe take actually a change in tone in the book. Hopefully, I'm looking to find a few things for you for next week, because it's our last chapter. It's a 10-page chapter, so we can get through it reasonably quickly. But we've got a couple of things to look at, and one of them which I've been keeping, and I'm very happy to listen to everybody's sort of opinions on it. And I still haven't found my original source, is the identity of harem. So we can have a natter about that next week, because I think we have his final mention here. This supposed, and the idea of the pharaonic empire, if you like. It's interesting because I don't think Egypt, the pharaohs, etc., they weren't imperial. as kingdoms, weren't they? And probably the only pharaoh that I might consider an emperor in that sense might be Alexander the Great. You know, saying that I'm no Egyptologist, but I don't think of Egypt as an empire, ancient Egypt. So yeah, we have to have a little chat about harem and the pharaonic idea, the ancestor that I think betrayed him. I said years ago, basically, when I was doing my PhD, and I had to chop bits out, and I think I've told you I lost a lot of stuff, but I had found the source, and it had a cartouche, I believe, that had harem on it as Cheops. But I haven't been able to find it on it, so I can't back that up. And Chaya sent me some rather good stuff. There's a couple of candidates as well, and it could be possible that, like some individuals within the Dune series, that they're an actual amalgamation of more than one character. But I'm going to do the work for it next week, folks. Chaya sent me some stuff that I will be able to read for you in relation to harem. And if any, I know I'm going to double back to the episode where we initially had a bit of a natter about it, because I think a few people threw their ideas out there. So I want to quickly see if I can find those and scribble them down and pretty much throw what everybody suggested back then, and any suggestions that you guys have, and plus whatever I can find, and we'll just run the problem, I suppose, and see what's the best fit. But it's a really, I'm going to enjoy reading. There's some really good speeches in this next chapter. I've read it. I've read a good number of parts of this for my PhD videos before, and I really enjoyed reading it. And I think some of Leto's his speech in this really suits a Northern Ireland accent. You know, no, no. So it's going to be fun to read, actually. Our first real sense of the God Emperor being God Emperor, taking control and getting sort of, I suppose, almost like day one of the Golden Path on the go, if you like. And again, we're going to get to see it through. I suppose it's just the discussion with Farad'n and Stilgar and so on and so forth. There'll be Leto on the Golden Lion throne. Arya of the Lion of the Atreides, the second Atreides Emperor, if you like. And so that should be fun. But yes, and yeah, there we go. Thanks, Doc. No worries. Flaccid House saying, looking forward to God Emperor. Not read it in a while and eager to hear everyone's opinions. Yes, indeed. And guys, believe it or not, I think we started this in January 2022, I believe. 2023, so we're well over 3.5 years at this, believe it or not. Next week will be the last chapter 64 of Children of Dune. That'll be the Great Dune trilogy finished. So we've been at it for a while. I'm only going to take a couple of weeks off, to be honest, though life is going to be suddenly changing on me, because, as I said, we decided we want to get the hell out of here and move house. And it's time we have to get things rolling. But in all honesty, I hope to just take a few weeks off. I've got such bad news. Well, it's not really bad news. It's bad news for me. I had basically written a video on the Baron Harkonnen. Can you believe I accidentally deleted the whole thing? Yeah, my wife told me she thought it was quite good. I've got to rewrite the whole damn thing. I've got to. I can't believe it. I haven't accidentally deleted a document, and I can't remember the last time I did that, which is rather daft of me. But I'm going to have to rewrite it. It's basically showing the connection, but it's a video about showing the connection. It's to do with the Baron's sexuality and his connection to Laius from Greek mythology, pretty much. I thought some people should know about that. But there we go. But yes, indeed, I'm really looking forward to God Emperor, folks, I have to say. Well, listen, that's it for this week, I believe. It's a nice wee short chapter. Lots of good stuff there. Great things from Ghanima, seeming quite impressive. The Atreides ladies, that's not too easy to say, is it? The Atreides ladies, at the full-on height of their propaganda powers here. It's for an audience, and ultimately, even though we don't know who that is, we could suggest it's Stilgar, it's Tayek, it's Farad'n, but it's actually us, isn't it? The theatre here is for us. And it's quite impressive to kind of have it done so overtly in your face, I think. You know, Makes you kind of wonder if the Atreides used to put on a family play every Christmas or something back on Calendar, you know. But there we go. Flaccid House, I'm going to go back and listen to tonight's read. Take care, folks. No worries, Flaccid House. Thank you very much. We will be back. I'll just say goodnight myself, folks. We'll be back for the final chapter, of Children of Dune, and the final chapter of the first great Dune trilogy next week. Same time as usual, Thursday at 10 o'clock, if all goes to according to plan. And it should do, by the way. I'll be pulling out all the stops to make sure that we go on our normal day and our normal time. So hopefully Thursday, 10 o'clock next week for the final chapter of Children of Dune, which I'm really looking forward to. I hope you can all join me. We have even a little bit of a celebration, Q&A, etc. once we're done, and I'm really looking forward to it. And again, coming to the end of another journey with these books with all of you, it's been fun. So we're not there yet. One more week to go, folks. One more episode. So really looking forward to it. Bojack said, "Take care." You too, Bojack. Cynthia said, "Thanks, Doc, and all." Thank you, Cynthia, as always, and Flaccid House. Bojack, incredible name. All you folks out there, you have a good week. Look after yourselves. Be safe. And yeah, I hope you're enjoying your science fiction and your Dune as well. Anything Dune related. Oh, and one more thing, actually, but I'll tell you what, I'll keep it for next week. I'll tell you all about it if you remind me. It's something to do with the White Plague. But anyway, I'll say goodnight, folks. Take it easy. All the best. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Do 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 ba 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 ba.